All right, here we are on the BDE, on the Realm Network, and this is me. This episode of Turning Point is going to be just me. And the reason for that is it's been a year. 365 of the longest days, probably in my 50 years that I can remember, longest days. And it's been a year since my resignation from the WWE Performance Center, WWE/NXT, and as the head coach of the whole, what was then called the developmental system. So I thought this episode would just be me catching everybody up. There are a lot of people who have reached out over the past 12 months and want the dirt. They want to know, give us the dirt. Tell us everything that went on. Give us your side of all the accusations. Give us your side of the internet stories. Tell us about the emails. Tell us about all these people who came out of the woodwork after they had been released from the company and or forgotten about over any course of time and jumped on a picture that had a caption put to it and an email that was sent 3 years earlier. We want to know everything. Tell us about what happened and the conversations that happened that led to your resignation. I'm here to tell you, I've had more than a dozen people reach out with some incredible offers, monetary, like we'd like to pay you this to get your side of the story and everything else. And I'm going to tell you my side of the story. And I'm going to do it here on the BDE. But before we get to that, we'll get to some business, right? Because it's kind of a serious thing. And I hope to laugh at the end because I'm going to talk about a year after me leaving the company, I did my first appearance. So I want to talk about that and talk about the guys and the girls I got to see and the good time I had with the fans. And the positive stuff that came out of it, not this negative that everybody wants to still, there's people who are catching up to news a year later on social media and, trying to stir the pot again. And let's face it, once people get their nuts off and join a social media campaign that they know nothing about, but it gives them a chance to shit to stir because social media gives people the opportunity to speak up freely and can talk about whatever they want. No matter how it damages someone personally, professionally, emotionally, whatever it is, people get to do that. And I guess that's their right. And I choose to use social media in a positive way. I'm not sure I've always done that, but I choose to do that now. So I'm wearing this hat on the BDE because I am a supporter of the company. I'm a big fan. So that's going to hurt a lot of feelings in this episode of The Turning Point. But I'm a big fan. But I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So I want to talk first about, we'll talk about the whole year and what I've been doing and catching it up everybody to what, not necessarily what they read, but what the truth is in the life of Bill DeMott, since I'm such a newsworthy topic on the internet and, whatever the dirt sheets are and things like that. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk about the event I was just in New York on May 5th. Big city event, I believe was the name of it. Forgive me if I get it wrong, but I was contacted about doing an appearance. By the way, it was my first appearance in a year. And I don't shy away from appearances. I've done a few training camps. I've gone to the Dudley School. I go down to the dojo down here in Orlando and work out with Santana Garrett and some of the guys and girls down there every now and again. The same place where Larry Zbyszko and Scott Hall go when they're in town and are free. And I love to be around wrestling. But it was the first time I was contacted about making an appearance. To quote one person from the TNA offices who contacted me, said, "Man, we'd love to have you, but you're nuclear hot right now. And I don't want to upset the things we're doing." Understandable. And I think a lot of people just figured that I was out of the industry or out of the business. And Figured they'd leave it alone. Well, my buddy Michael from High Spots, who I've known for years, reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing this thing. You interested in coming up to New York and doing an appearance?" Well, it was a huge thing. There's so many people in the hotel, and I was to be honest, I was nervous. I was getting on a plane for the first time in a year. The last time I was on a plane that had to do with wrestling, I was coming home from Columbus, Ohio, and we'll talk about that coming up too, since it's been a year and they just went back to the Arnold Classic and all the good things that NXT is doing. But it was the first time for me I got on in the year, and I found myself like hesitant. Like I got to the airport and I was looking and I was like, what do you do? What are you supposed to do when somebody comes up to you in person and then is negative, or then wants to shit disturb, or feels froggy about what they're doing? And that's so my question, and to clear it up right now, that never happened. But I'm not a negative cat, so I don't want to be approached with negativity. And I always have my answers, I guess my politically correct answers, but that wasn't the case. But I got on the plane, and for the 2-hour plus plane ride, I sat and listened to music and just tried to find my happy place. And then I started to remember how much fun it was to go and meet the fans. And I started to look forward to it. And the first thing that happened for me when I landed at LaGuardia Airport and got to the shuttle and got to the building was I ran into Bull James, artist formerly known as Bull Dempsey, James Smith, Baby Huey, all the fun things. James and I got to catch up on a few episodes back on Turning Point. And so there, Bull and I were standing in this big room as we're watching and looking at all the legends of wrestling that were there. And, on the other side the Rock and Roll Express were setting up. Wildfire Tommy Rich was setting up. Terry Funk was walking in. Gene Snitsky, who I absolutely love. Loved him when we were training. Loved him after. Loved him during. Loved him before. We stay in touch. And Gene is just one of those honest guys, good-hearted, loves the business, is just a positive cat. And if you get a chance to follow him on social media, do it. He's a good guy. He's funny. And it's not his fault. That was my running line. And then all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there and I'm kind of easing my nerves, and I saw Bill Apter, who made me feel very comfortable, and Bill's up on everything. So Bill and I talked. We'll get into that in a second as well. But then there he was, larger than life. And as a young kid in Japan, wanting to learn the business, I was trying to follow every big gaijin in Japan and see what they were doing. And legendary, just a mountain of a man, Stan Hansen, is in the corner. And I went, holy Jesus. So here he comes walking through. And like I said, none of the fans were in yet. So it was just the boys and the legends walking around and getting a cup of coffee and getting ready for it. It's 8:30 in the morning. Now, I've been up since 4 o'clock to get to the airport and everything. And I missed that, believe it or not. I missed the get up early, catch your flight and all these things. But there he was, Stan the Lariat Hansen. And he's walking towards me. And I found myself becoming that young man in 1990, going to Japan for the first time and going to Korakuen Hall and getting to follow those shows as I started with Wing, and we followed New Japan and All Japan and all the bigger companies at the time. And I stood there and I said, "Mr. Hansen, it's a pleasure to meet you, Bill DeMott." And with the biggest smile and the biggest freaking hand ever, shook my hand, and we stood there for a minute. We exchanged pleasantries for a minute. And I thought, 28 years later, I finally meet Stan Hansen, who's now being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. So I thought that was a good icebreaker for me because it brought me back to what I love, and I love wrestling. And to shake Stan Hansen's hand and to start my first appearance in over a year, I couldn't have thought of a better way. So thank you, Stan Hansen, for making that happen. And that started the experience in New York. And then I ran into Bill Apter, and Bill Apter and I talked off Cameron. I did a little interview for Bill, and he wanted to talk about NXT and WWE and all those things. And my answer is this. There was a lot of people I met in New York on that weekend that came up and were apologizing. And I thought it was awesome because they were sincere fans and the boys and people who have worked in the industry for X amount of years. I saw George Napolitano, Bill Apter, and all these great people. And then some of the veterans of the industry. And a lot of them were, man, I'm sorry you went through that. And I'm sorry for everything that happened. And la, 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 la. And I listened to it, and I was so grateful for people bringing that up. But my answer to everybody was this. It's wrestling. And I got to share a lot of stories with Lex Luger, who I spent the day with, and a lot of cats that I haven't seen in a lot of years. Robert Gibson was very gracious enough to speak highly of me and remember our time in Deep South, when a lot of people don't remember all the good that came out of Deep South. They remember a picture that some douche took on a cell phone at the time of Make a Deal Friday, where the talent did something and I was in the picture and claimed that I made Talent Train naked. And that wasn't the case, but it goes back to the conversation of a year later, after all this shit happens. That was brought up in 2011 when I came back to the company, and it was squashed, but in social media, it becomes the court of public opinion. Anyway, Robert Gibson and I exchanged, big hug, and because it's freaking Rock and Roll Express, there's Ricky Morton and talking to all these guys and go, man, I'm sorry about the bum deal. And I'm thinking about it. But my answer always is this: it's wrestling. And if you don't go into the business, like I've been fortunate enough to be around it for 28 years, just about 28 years before I resigned, left, was asked to leave, whatever people want to say, however everybody else wants to tell the story. Here's how I'm telling the story. I resigned, openly resigned. And you have to realize that when you're in this business, especially this business, because people refuse to believe that it's an actual business, and it's run by a corporation, but it is, and it's publicly traded, and all these things that come into play, and you have to watch what you do and what you say, and the public's opinion matters because it's commercials and stockholders and all these things, and you don't want to be frowned upon, and I get all that. So my answer to everybody who was saying to me, so sorry, man, you got a raw deal, that sucks, people are assholes, and all these things that you can't say. And I thanked them, and I said, hey, man, it's wrestling, and I understand that. And I also understand that I could be back in wrestling. You never say never, and you never, you don't dwell on it. And that's what I've learned over growing in this business and being surrounded by the people that I just finished working for and been around, and I use Triple H as the example. And people, well, what do you think of him? And you don't have to be political. Here's what I think. I love working for the guy. I have the utmost respect for him. All the coaches, everybody in WWE. That's why I'm wearing the hat. And I'm not here kissing ass because it's my show. I can say whatever the hell I want. And there's no repercussion. I don't have to be politically correct. If I think someone's a pussy or an asshole, I'm going to say it on this show because it's my show. I can't cancel me. But I'm going to be honest at the same time, and I have no animosity towards anyone. There's a few people I wish would have done more due diligence to help, keep this from getting to where it was. But at the end of the day, that's on them, and hopefully somebody else learned a lesson. I learned my lesson that no matter what happens, someone's going to dig into your past, and everybody has a story. Everybody has a rendition, and there's two sides to every story. And in wrestling, there's 42 sides because you're dealing with 80 talent, miserable, not miserable, whatever it is. And whatever people can do, and whoever gets out there first and tells their story, then everybody else is backpedaling. And so back to my original thing to everybody, and who I was thankful for all the positive stuff, not one negative thing, not from the fans, not from promoters I met, not from the boys, nobody going, oh, you made us look like shit, all this other stuff. No. Hey, man, how's it going? And it was nothing but hugs and respect and thankfulness. Thankfulness on my part because I love being in front of the fans. And anybody who spends time with me knows I love wrestling, sports entertainment, in front of the camera, behind the camera. I love the whole thing. So I was very thankful to be in front of people and go, man, I'm so happy I did that. And then people going, hey, would you like to do another? Yes, because I'll be in front of the fans. You want to talk wrestling? I'll talk wrestling, because wrestling's just an opinion. My captain, Steve Kern, taught me that a long time ago. Steve Kern taught me that when I got let go in Deep South Wrestling before it became FCW. He reminded me of, again, when I came back to FCW. He reminded me again when we became NXT. He reminded me again when we got to the Performance Center. And I love him for it, because wrestling's just an opinion. And fans have an opinion, and people can say and do whatever they want. What I will say, and try not to beat this as a dead horse, is that I want everybody to put themselves in the position of, what if someone else did that to you? How would you react? And that's the true measure of a professional. I got criticized for not standing up for myself. I got criticized for not coming back with comments against all these people who came out of the woodwork. Some people who had never been where they said they were, who had never been to a training camp. There was a girl who claimed she paid to be at the training camp and got treated like shit. And no one's ever paid to be at a training camp, unless it was a camp being held and if you signed up. But in the WWE, you're invited to the camp, and you don't pay. So there was people coming out, and so then it was girls complaining and guys complaining and all these things, and I get it. And people want to know, hey, Bill, why didn't you defend yourself? Because there's nothing to defend. Here's how I defend myself. A year after I'm removed from my position, and Matt Bloom takes over, which was a smart move. And Matt and I talked about it for months and months and months and months before that someone's got to fill this spot. You have to start training someone to take that spot. And I believe Matt and I were doing that the whole time. So it was a smart move. But you have to take wrestling at face value. Different show, but so the turning point, see what I did there? The turning point for me was not defending myself, because that was all old news. These were all old accusations that someone drummed up, that someone did this, someone did that. And the fact that WWE went on publicly and said they'd already looked into this and found no justifiable story or anything like that was kind of consoling. But at the end of the day, I worked very hard alongside Paul, Triple H. I worked hard alongside the WWE and the talent that are in the Performance Center, and helped build that coaching staff and that training system and how things were run on a daily basis. And I have so much respect for the company. And if I'm nothing else, I'm loyal. I have so much respect for that company. There's no way in hell I'm going to defend myself against 4 or 5 people who started a social media campaign against me. So to the social media people out there and the internet people who want to run those things, that's your job. I get it. That's how you make your money. And they did it. They did their job. And they put so much pressure on the company had to come to me and go, Bill. And because of my respect for NXT, Paul Levesque, Stephanie, Vince, the company, the people in it, and everybody who worked hard to get NXT to where it was, I wasn't willing to sit in a shitstorm and bring it down. We were in Columbus, Ohio. We were in the first live events ever that NXT was going to outside of Florida. And it was going to be the Arnold Classic, and there was tryouts, and months of preparation went into this. And this shitstorm started about a week, 2 weeks before. And you knew it was coming because I told my coaches it was coming. Because the bigger the limelight on the whole thing, someone's got to be there. Someone's got to be there to put a pin in the balloon. And you have to know, as the head coach or whatever it is leading that system, that you're the one. Because I've always been in that position. I learned a long time ago, right? Someone's got to eat the shit sandwich. You're told a long time ago, old school, learn to eat a shit sandwich. And I learned to eat it. Apparently, I still keep a little bit right here, so I still know what it tastes like. But there's no way now. In my second book, I get into it a little more in detail. But it's not against the company. Again, I say I'm disappointed in a few individuals that could have handled their side of it better, if that makes any sense. If everybody else was as diligent as I was with my paperwork and my emails and the things that I did on a daily basis, if a couple of those people were as in tune to what the job entailed at the time when all this stuff came to be, there's the paperwork, there's this, there's that, everything's on the side of what's right, maybe this wouldn't have happened, but it happened. And then you move on. So a year ago at this time, I was on a flight home from Columbus, and I thought about it, and I went, man, that was a strong 4+ years again. And I'm very proud of what's gone on. And then to watch it last week where they're back at the Arnold, back to where it started, and Triple H tweeted, look at the difference a year makes. And I'm very proud of them. And when I watch Raw, and I watch the shows, and I try to keep up on what everybody's doing, nothing but pride for Charlotte and Becky and Sasha going into Mania, and Neville and Zayn making his return, and Owens and all these guys. And if everybody was so into what they were doing, then you poll all 80 and talk to all of them and get everybody's input. But that's not the world we live in. We live in the court of public opinion. And the people spoke, and they got what they wanted, and everybody left the company alone. And a year later, they're shining bright. And now the announcement of WrestleMania in Orlando, WrestleMania 33, that's going to be huge for the Performance Center and everything that's happened. And I'm happy. And I'm happy to wear this hat because that's who I am. That's who I worked for. I'm not going to turn my back on the product or the people there. And I'm grateful. So I'm hoping that puts kind of an end to it until you read my book. I'm pretty sure I'm a little more in detail with because I'll be honest, in my second book that I'm writing now, I respond to every one of those accusations. And I have the quarterly reports and the conversations that were had with people in the office with those talent who made the complaints that have the opposite conclusion. But that's neither here nor there. It's not worth it. So I find myself in NYC meeting up with guys and girls I haven't seen in a long time. And I thought it was freaking great. And it just reminded me of how much I came home and my wife looked at me. She goes, "You had a good day?" And I said, "Yeah, I had a good day." I haven't had many good days since the time I left. And it's just personal things that have gone on and tragedies. And you start to question life in general. But at the end of the day, every time I'm around the wrestling business, I have a smile on my face, and I miss the hustle. I miss the day-to-day, and it's not for everybody. For everybody who gets a chance to do that, it's not for everybody. Being a coach is the hardest freaking job in the world. Football, basketball, baseball, it's 24 hours a day. You're a coach, you're a cheerleader, you're a big brother, you're a big sister, you're a guidance counselor, you're an authority figure. But the one thing you're not is you're not one of the boys. And that's what this generation doesn't get. They want to share the stories with you. They want to hear what you did in your time if you were fortunate enough to have a great career, and how was it on the road, and they want to hear the fun. And while you want to share that, someone has to be that guy. And I'll always stand by, I was that guy. Some of the other coaches hopefully learned from it, but you can't be one of the boys because you're not there for that. There's more to it. The emails, the telephone calls, the responsibilities, the all these things. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that Paul gave me. And people have asked me, would I go back? Yeah, I'd go back. I'm not sure if I'd be invited back or if there's a place for me, but I would love to have the discussion somewhere down the line because, that passion is there, and the love for the business is there, and the respect for the company is there. So I'd like to think there's something to offer. I still love coaching, and I plan on doing more of that this year and for years to come. And so I'm looking forward to the appearances and things like that. But I got a chance to see some good friends that I haven't seen in a long time. And one of those people for me was Bill Goldberg. And I knew Bill was in the building, but he had his own room because you put all these legends and all these things. But people want to see Goldberg. He's red hot. He's still relevant. So much so he had his own room, and it was great. So before I was leaving, I asked the kid I was there with, Ken. I call everybody kid because I feel like at 50, I'm older than everybody in the world. So I asked the kid, Ken, I said, hey, man, before we go, I'd like to stop and see BG. And he had this long line, as to be expected. So I stepped around the other side, and people were watching because for wrestling fans, Goldberg's first match was with Hugh Morris. For everybody who's not with the business, who's only been a fan for the past, 10 years instead of 28 years, I was Goldberg's first match, and his 7th and his 47th and his 110th. And that's the running joke because I got to work with Bill a lot, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed Bill as a person. He's a good man. So I wanted the chance to say hello because we've been opposite sides, East Coast, West Coast, for so many years. So I walked up to the front of the line, and while he was talking to a young man in a wheelchair, and Bill was saying to the young man, he goes, if anybody gives you a problem, you come and get me and I'll let you know. And Bill was having this great conversation and everybody was smiling. Bill has this way with kids. And so I said, yeah, I tried to give him a hard time, but he wouldn't let me. And Bill looks up and sees me and goes, what the hell? And we walked from the other sides of and we met, and just an embrace, a man's embrace. And we just talked for a couple minutes because I didn't want to keep him from his fans, but so thankful to see Bill, get to talk to him. And the words he spoke to me were so uplifting because those are the things I miss about a locker room, the guys you're genuinely friends with and went through things with. And you don't always get along with everybody every day, and there's issues, and there's heat, and this guy, this and that. But when you get a chance to meet up with a guy like Bill, and I'm fortunate enough to feel like I have a lot of people like that in my wrestling life, that when I see them, genuinely miss them and want to give them a hug and tell them how much I appreciate them and love seeing them. And Bill and I had that, and I just felt so good about the whole day. And then I was leaving, and there he was in his cowboy hat, and it was my coach, one of my coaches since I started in the WWF and then became a WWE. And I met with this man when I first got hired, Jim Ross. And Jim Ross and I, over the past 16 years, I feel became very close, personally, professionally. And here's the thing about Jim for me. He's always straight with me. He'll always look me in the eye like I'm a man and talk to me as such. And I would do the same to him, and I would listen because there's knowledge of navigating the muddy waters, of how to play the game, and been around this business so long, he could tell you inside and out, start to finish, and he can help you get to where you want to go. And JR has helped me my whole career, in and out of the ring. And I wanted a chance to shake his hand because I didn't see him when he had left. He didn't see me when I had left. And I just wanted to share that moment because there's people in your life that you meet. And like I said, I'm blessed to have many of them. And I hope to see them all. But I got a chance to talk to JR. And at the end, he goes, you're my fullback. I need 3 yards. Can you get it? And he would give me the best pep talks, whether I was in a 3-piece suit or whether I was in my freaking spandex getting ready to go to the ring. I came home chest out, just full of love again for the business and the people I've been surrounded with. And I thought that's why I would do this Turning Point by myself, because I'm going to catch up to people. And hopefully I have Crowbar coming up, and I'd like to get Sammy Callahan on here and some of the other guys and girls that have been through the system, and then just talk to some of the boys themselves. Lex Luger. I had such a great time talking to Lex, and talk about a guy who I thought for years didn't even know I was around, because he was Lex Luger and I came in as Hugh Morris. And, while I had the opportunities to rise, it's Lex freaking Luger. He's a legend. I sat there with Lex from 9 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we talked and laughed. And Lex is one of the most encouraging guys for everything he's been through in life, the roller coaster ride he's been on, just a positive influence. And you may not appreciate guys when you're with them, But as you get older and more mature, and whether you're still in the business or not, you learn to appreciate what you had with them and what you have with them now. Seeing Paul Roma and Tatanka and Tommy Rich and Terry Funk and all these freaking guys, Matt Hardy and all these guys, and of course my buddies Brodus, who are right behind me, and then Billy Gunn. You know, the love you have for certain guys in this industry doesn't end. And I love the fact that you may be away from them for months or years, but when you see them, it's like picking up again. And that's what I love about this business. And that's what I want people to love about this business, not the negative shit. And when it's wrestling, I cuss, and, you know, my wife gets mad and stuff, but that's just it. Sometimes you cuss, and it's nothing more than just a stupid word you use. And then you call somebody a pussy, you're not attacking them as a person. When I grew up in New Jersey and someone said, kick the ball, don't be a pussy, they weren't attacking your gender or your person. It was a phrase, and I get that you have to learn to change that. But when people use that shit against you, that's what burns me up. That's what burns me up. Because Frank at Frank123, I don't even know it's a real person, so if it is, excuse me, because I'm just using that as an example, can say something about Bill DeMott when you've never met me. And then other person can retweet it or add to it and all this, and they can drop the F-bomb and everything else. That's not politically incorrect. That's not bullying. That's not torturing people. That's not defamation. That's a social media. And that's where we go wrong. Again, it's in my book, and I'll get into it. But that's why I started this podcast, and that's why I started the YouTube thing on the Bill DeMott experience, because when I resigned, when I left a year ago, the first thing that came to mind was I want people to get to know me. They don't know me. They know me from Tough Enough, thank goodness. They know the character Bill DeMott from WWE, thank goodness, because they're watching. They know the hard ass and all these other things and the looks and all this stuff. I'm not an angry person. I'm a positive person who spends more time trying to lift other people up than taking care of myself at times. And that's what happened here. Because no one will ever talk to you about the time they were in my office and broke down crying and needed to be lifted up and boosted and reminded how good they are and what they're here for. No one wants to talk about the honesty of Bill DeMott. Nobody wants to talk about those things. They wanted to talk about the character that they knew from the boob tube, not the person they met, because they never met me. So I start the Bill DeMott experience a year ago on YouTube, and I start to meet coaches and people. I want to hear their story and how they deal with life and how they live life and what they're there for and what their objective is. And then I started this podcast with my buddy Vince Russo, who told me, go out and meet people because you're a good talker. I don't think so, but I'm talking now. But I wanted to address a year later. It's been a year. And there's a lot that's happened in my life in this year that has also been on the internet and made the news. And I'm grateful. I'd like to say, some people are waiting for me to drop the other shoe and really rip things apart, but I'm not. I'm grateful, man. So on this turning point, I'm just taking the time a year later to say I'm grateful to the talent that understand what they're doing there, that they're getting paid to be there, and that there's a good group of people coaching them and trying to help them through life, because they all leave there better than when they got there. Whether they become the main event at WrestleMania or not is not the issue anymore. Whether they're the NXT heavyweight champion or whatever it's called, forgive me, I don't know what they're using right now. Whether they're Finn Balor or whether they're Mike Wallace, whose name is different. They're better than when they got there. They're learning. The company puts things in front of them that helps them in life after wrestling. And the people that are trying to help them are often the people that are caught in the firing squad. But a year later, I'm here to say I'm not miserable. I watch it and I get frustrated because I find myself doing that. But more importantly, I find myself sending messages to the talent, congratulating them on how proud I am of them and how happy I am that they're doing well, and I hope they're doing fine. For the ones that aren't there anymore, I send them a message and thank them for the time we had together, because that's genuinely coming from a man who cares. So a year later, I'm doing a show called Turning Point, and I'm talking about wrestling. There's a lot of people out there doing podcasts who are much more knowledgeable about me and can talk about the whole 3 hours of Raw and what's wrong and how to book it and what's wrong with the business and why they're killing it and all these things. And that's not my thing. My thing is to go, holy crap, man. That roster is full of NXT, Performance Center, FCW, Deep South, OVW. People have come through the system. And I'm so happy that I had something to do with it. Not a lot to do with it. Something. I'm so happy I got to sit next to other people who had something to do with it. I'm so happy I got to see it and offer a direction or an opportunity for them to make it better. Whether they're an announcer, whether they're a referee, whether they're a commentator, or whether they're in the ring every night, 300 nights a week. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic for NXT. I'm super happy for Paul. I'm proud of everything he's done. And if that can be honestly said for me, which it is, then that's everybody's answer. That's why I left without a fight, because so many people put time and effort into this. The company's backed it. The WWE Universe has backed it. And for the few that tried to change it and put a damper on it, they didn't do it. They took down one guy, but they didn't take down the system. They didn't take down the company. They didn't take down the coaches. They didn't. And it's going to happen again because, unfortunately, that's just human nature, right? You got to go after somebody. And it happens in every sport and it happens everywhere. And the court of public opinion, you're not going to change it. But here I am a year later telling you, get my book when it comes out. I'll announce it because I'm working on it. For everybody who's not caught up on it, I put my efforts into with the things that have happened in my personal life. I'm working very closely with the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There's talk of political aspirations. I don't know how that's going to work, that whole court of public opinion thing, but I'm very, very into changing the way things are done in the state of Florida and across the nation as far as drunk driving and impaired driving and the perception of people who get away with murder. Unfortunately, that's the only word I have for it right now. But I've stayed busy. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by my family and a manager that believe in me. And I'm going to be around wrestling. And I say this to everybody, get in touch with me. Everybody somewhere knows how to get in touch with Bill DeMott. Get in touch with me to be on this show, to speak your mind, because I'm up for anybody who wants to say whatever they want to say. Sometimes it's the debate. Sometimes we agree and disagree. But book me for your seminars. I love it. I absolutely love it. I want everyone to succeed. And if they don't succeed, I want them to understand why or what they should be thinking about. I've been around the system long enough. I understand how it works. I think I have great insight, being the guy who's put together the tryout system for so many years. There's people I want to help, and there's people I want to see get an opportunity. And then you do what you can with the opportunity that's given to you. But I want to say thank you for the opportunity. And I'll do it again. I'm ready to do it again. I'm always ready. But this turning point was about me saying, here I am a year later. I ain't mad. I'm a little bored. Could I be doing more? Yes. Will I be doing more? Yes. But sports entertainment and wrestling is what I do. It's my passion. I love the film I just did. I love the commercials I'm doing. I love the opportunities. But at the drop of a hat, I want to be in wrestling rings with people who are sweating and working hard and mad and bitching and tired and sore. But at the end of the day, when they get their opportunity, they're ready. And they're doing what they love. So that's it for this turning point. A lot of people may be disappointed that they didn't get the ranting and raving. I'm sure it's coming because I have my moments. Like I said, that's for my book and whatever else. But for all the people that wanted a great big interview and hear all the dirt stays with me. If there is dirt, it stays with me. If there's a bitching, complaining department, it's going to stay with me. But this is me telling you the fans that a year later, I'm so happy and proud of NXT and Triple H and what he's doing and the WWE and for everything that's gone on, that's what I want to leave everybody with. So for all the negatives, here's my reply. Here's my positive. Thanks. Keep it up. Johnny Rogers say, as long as they're talking about you good or bad, they're talking about you. I don't necessarily agree with that in my older age because I don't like the negative. But everybody hit me up on Twitter. I mean, I'll answer questions if they're voiced the right way. But as far as the interviews and stuff, I'll do my interviews here on my shows or with Vince Russo or if I ever get a chance to talk to Austin or Taz or JR on their podcast, I'd probably be a little more detailed. But that's it. So a year later, in the life of Bill DeMott, here we are, hashtag BDE on the Bill DeMott Experience. This is Turning Point, and this is where we talk wrestling. But I wanted to sport my hat as they get ready for WrestleMania. Charlotte, Becky, Sasha, Owens, Zayn is moving up. The Bullet Club is coming. All these guys and everything that's going on, Jericho's, everything that's going on. I love wrestling. I love talking about wrestling. I love learning about wrestling. And to everyone I saw at NYC last week, thank you. Thank you for remembering what I did and what I do, not what you read. And that's why I close every show like this. I'm Bill DeMott. This is the Bill DeMott Experience. Do what you say what you mean what you do. I'm out.